This is the Café con Podcast.
What up, everybody?
Hi, everybody. I am Isaac Gonzalez Rossi.
And I am George Michael Naranjo. And
This is the Café con Podcast.
That sounded expensive. So stupid. Man, this was awesome. But before we even get into that, as you know, we always want to shout out some love. Thank you to everybody who listens. Please let people know. Tell us if you want us to talk about any topics in specific, or specifically, I should say. If you have anybody that wants to come on, if you guys have any questions you'd like for us to answer over the air, we appreciate you. We love you. We love you. All of your little cafina nights. I don't even know what to call you. Cafecitos out there, coladitas, all that good stuff. We love you guys. Thank you. And it's time for the review of the coffee for this episode. What are you drinking over there, Papa? You drinking your usual?
the usual espresso machine. I'm not gonna be lying. I'm gonna give it a 5 today because it did get a little cold before, but a 5's better than a 0. So
And
I'll leave it at that.
do you know what kind of you got to find out what beans your parents use?
Yeah, I gotta ask my mom.
Do that for the next one. Ask your mom which beans you guys use. And then today, I myself am drinking good old Reverent coffee. It's funny, their coffee got lost in transit, so I've been waiting for a minute for it, but it finally got here. And it had nothing to do with them. It had to do with the post office, because the post office, I put a hold on the mail. We went out of town, got back. It was this whole thing. Anyways, Casey was literally so nice, the actual owner of Reverent, because I texted him. I go, hey, I don't know if you guys sent it. He goes, dude, let me know. I will help you get more coffee. I want you to have our coffee. That just goes to show you the care that these people have. All right. Now, this episode was fueled by their Guatemala blend. Unbelievable. Your coffee was a 5. I think the last time I was drinking like a Starbucks one. This one, I'd give it like in my mind, I'm coming to like a 7.6, 7.8. Okay.
Not bad.
Very nice. And it had nothing to do with the coffee itself, the flavors. Let me see.
Yeah, tell us what about it?
So it's a little cold right now, and even cold, it still tastes good. That's the thing to me. I'd give it like a 7.8. Now this is a light blend, I believe. I threw away the bag, so I don't remember what the tasting notes are. But just from the feeling that I had, the cool thing about this one was that when I went up, it wasn't like a whoop, and I was going crazy. It was a more steady incline and a steady decline, and that's something that I've. Yes, bro, I love that. So I've been drinking this blend for the past couple of days, and that's what I've recognized for it. Because a lot of times you drink coffee and you just fall off a cliff, right? And you're just kind of you're going,
I hate that feeling.
and then you fall off a cliff, and you're like, well, damn, I need another coffee now. I can only drink 1 cup of coffee with this, and I'll be good for the day. So again, can't shout them out enough. Reverent Coffee Company out of Oakhurst, California. We're not paid to talk about them like this. I just love their coffee. It is.
I have to reach out to them and get an episode with them.
Dog. Yeah, I've been talking to the owner about it. So this episode, this was Doug Campbell, the esteemed Doug Campbell. I came across him because of my wife, Sky. She worked with him on Vanished in Yosemite. Go watch it now. And she has another movie coming out with him. I believe, I don't even know what the name of it is now. So I'm not even going to say the name because I don't know what it is. But they had another movie in the works as well. Doug shouted out 4 of his films at the end of this episode. And unbelievable episode. I just want to say right off the bat, you have to wait until the end, because he says something at the end. And I quote, he specifically said, I wish I would have said this at the beginning of the podcast. So at the very end of this episode, he talks about something that he wished he would have said at the beginning, dealing with his own perspectives in terms of the whole industry. But he's an esteemed director and writer out here in LA, as we found out, born and raised in LA, Canoga Park. And he gave such an honest peek into what it's like for a director perceiving actors. I was telling Sky really quickly right now, this episode's amazing for anybody that wants to be an actor. because you find out about how a director thinks when they're looking at tapes, how he thinks about when you go into an audition room, when you're on set, and you get an honest observation from the director's point of view. And it kind of made me feel really good because a lot of it had to do with it doesn't actually have to do with the actor. You know, that was a cool thing that I saw. And the freedom in terms of his responses that he was giving, you learn so much about how just got to show up and do the work, bro. That margin of difference. I love what you said in this episode too, which is when you're in the big leagues, it's not so much about the things that you're doing right. It's about the person who makes the least amount of mistakes, right? And just that doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes, right? That just means these people prepare. The margin of difference between those who are good and those who are great when you're in the big leagues is such a small margin of difference.
We're all not that far off.
No, none of us are far. Everyone can do it. He mentions a treadmill. This industry is like a treadmill. You got to keep on walking, got to keep on going. Anybody who's an aspiring actor, anybody who's an aspiring director or writer, my God, this episode is for you. This episode from beginning to end, no dead space. It was awesome. He was a delight, energetic, and just such a joy. And it really was a blessing to have him come on. What did you take from this, bro?
I would say I'll take a step further. I mean, yeah, initially when you're listening to it, you think it's for directors and actors, but being someone that's not in that specific endeavor, you can, if you turn to that perspective and apply it to what you do, whether it's creative or not, it can work for your life. I realized that he wasn't really talking about other directors. He was talking a lot about actors. And that made me realize, as someone that makes beats or makes music, like, yeah, I love to speak to other DJs and make music with them or other beat makers or producers, but I find some of the greatest producers are so great because they work with singers, right? So it's like he's not so engulfed of like getting lost in the sauce of being a director. He's surrounding himself with with actors and seeing how they work on the canvas of a script, right? So what I took from it was just step out of your comfort zone a little bit of just the everyday of just being with contemporaries that are doing the exact same thing you're doing. Like, yeah, you do that from time to time and take note of what they do and make it your own. But if you're in a artistic realm that there's collaboration, deal with those people you have to collaborate with as much as possible. So you can understand, like, what do I bring to the table that works with them to bring the best out of them? And like he said, he's just like, sometimes you just got to shut up and just watch how they work so then you can, react to that in a manner that makes sense. And that's what I would say about that.
He gave these steps to creating the environment, right? Because Sky has talked about the environment that he creates on set's a great environment. He gave 4, I would say 5, right? But he gave 4 main tenets and then like 4B at the end there, which is really something cool to listen to. So without further ado, I don't want to give anything else away about this episode. Very insightful. You're right. It applies to pretty much anybody. You can even use it I think personally, everybody's an artist. You can use it in everyday life. Great man.
Allowed to.
Allow yourself. And while you're listening, if at any point throughout this whole thing you ever forget, I mean, you just have to remember.
This is the Cafe Con Podcast.
Don't forget it. We love you guys.
Love you.
Isaac and I have been friends since we've basically been friends
since we were 4.
Since we were 4, since we took our diapers off.
Yeah.
Since you were 4.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, we've known each other.
Oh, that is lovely.
We grew up
That's
together.
really great.
Yeah. So we've seen each other.
We
all
went to a
phases of
small
life.
Christian school in South Florida. So
okay.
Yeah.
And now, where are you, George? You look like you're at a shoe store.
I am in a shoe store in my room. I sell shoes to myself.
It looks like it. It looks like My God, I think like I'm at Discount Shoe Warehouse. I love it. So,
DSW, DSW for the win.
So,
You gotta love it.
are you in California now? Or are you still in Florida?
I'm in South Florida. I'm still in South Florida. Yeah, I was born in Chicago, but I moved down here when I was about 3 years old. I went to a little small Christian school, and then I transferred to another Christian school, where I met Isaac when I was in kindergarten. So yeah, about 4 going on 5.
I didn't know that you went to another school before Day Christian.
Yeah, it was like on the Palmetto. It was a Spanish Christian school actually.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Oh man, so totally in Espanol, or did you speak any English there?
The school itself, I mean, it was like 90% Spanish, 10% English. Yeah, the school was a Spanish, like the name of the school, I think was called like Jesucristo something. I don't even remember.
It's Salvador. Sure. Jesucristo El Salvador bendiga nuestra
it's like like 10 words in one.
Yeah.
That was my first language up until I started going to kindergarten or like in preschool, really. Was Spanish.
Same here.
Yeah.
Was it really? I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys made the transition, were able to learn it at a young age, or was it a struggle, or did it just kind of happen naturally for you?
To learn English?
To learn Anglais. Yeah.
I think at that age it's pretty easy to learn it. The contrary, I think that I lost a lot of Spanish in my elementary years.
Because my parents don't speak Spanish at home either, so I agree with you, bro.
My parents did, though. My parents made sure to speak Spanish to us when we were toddlers because they wanted us to keep the Spanish language alive. But then once you go to school, obviously it becomes a secondary language. So, But it's funny now. I'm speaking more Spanish than ever because I have a 2-year-old niece and a 4-month-old niece. So we've kept that tradition alive of just speaking Spanish.
Keep that going.
It's so important, man, for little kids to speak another language. I think it's if you have the capability and you have the accessibility to speak another language. I know that I'm so grateful because I can still speak Spanish pretty well, but if I don't, it's kind of if you don't use it, you lose it. So
sure.
I try to speak it as much as possible. But I wanted to do this also. Cheers. Thank you, Doug, for coming on. Salud.
Thank you for salud. Thanks for having me.
The esteemed Doug Campbell, renowned in our household.
Well, it's so funny because I'm currently editing one half of your household at the moment and enjoying every edit that we do. She's so great. She always has something to give in her close-ups and her reactions, and she's just fearless. And I really, really appreciate working with her.
You'll find
with SkyCoin.
Yeah, this is the SkyCoin fan club. This is the SkyCoin fan club podcast.
Nice.
That's what it's called, Cafe Con Podcast. But we moonlight as a SkyCoin official fan club.
The sky's always around. The sky's always around.
She is. She is. What is it? Omnipresent. She is omnipresent.
She's omnipresent.
What, Doug? Where we were talking about us growing up. Where did you grow up? I know we spoke a little bit, and we'll get into how we kind of connected and how this whole thing came about. But where did you grow up?
Well, I'm really boring. I grew up in Los Angeles, California, in the west side of the San Fernando Valley in a little town called Canoga Park. And I went to Canoga Park High School. And I grew up, I'm a native Angelino, second generation. And so this is home. And yes, I struggled with Spanish in school and struggled, but I'm just terrible. I'm terrible at memorizing things. You know what I mean? I don't know how actors can memorize dialogue. I really don't know how they do it. So it was just the memorization, and I should speak Spanish because I live in California, in Los Angeles, and I should speak Japanese because I do go to Japan occasionally and to work, and then I should also speak French because my wife's Quebecois. So
Quebecois.
I am bereft. I am bereft at it all, and I'm barely functional in English, as you guys can see. So, I admire anybody who can handle 2, if not more, languages. It's fantastic. So yeah.
Canoga Park, you're just a hop, skip, and a jump for where we are. So we live in the valley also, and that they have a great comic book shop in Canoga Park. That's one thing that I remember. They have a great.
Do they?
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called, but I remember when I first moved out here.
Isaac loves comic books.
Went there. I love comic books.
Yeah. I probably rode my bike around the streets where you guys are living, just because that's what you did, you know?
Yeah. How was that growing up in LA, native Angelino? You don't meet, I mean, you meet a
You
lot
don't hear
of
that
them.
much, yeah?
No,
Yeah.
you meet, I have to say, I used to think it was a lot more scarce than it is. I've been meeting more and more people, especially in the Valley. You meet more Angelinos in the Valley than you do when you go into like Hollywood or Santa Monica. Everybody's kind of a transplant from somewhere else. But how was that growing up in LA?
You know, it's funny. It's you're a fish in water, so you don't know what you're into. But I realized what it was like to grow up here when I moved away and worked in Utah or Vermont or Tokyo or Canada or San Francisco or other cities. And I realized, wow, I've been blessed because we've always been about growth.
Yeah.
Los Angeles has always been about people coming here with their dreams to do whatever, artistically or financially or whatever. And I realized I'm in an environment, grew up in an environment where it was okay to say, I'm going to go be an actor. I'm going to go be a director. I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to build blank. I'm going to design a new business, as opposed to in an environment where, you know, you might come up with an idea like that, you know, back east, and people would say, oh yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
You know, that wasn't, you'd get a little bit of that from the bitter types that are out here. But for the most part, most folks that I have found in Los Angeles were like, hey, good luck. Good luck with that. And let me know how it goes, and maybe I can help you out. So I've been blessed with that, frankly. And I realized the difference. That's what it was growing up for me. It was like, go get it. Go do it.
Yeah.
Go do this. Go do this thing, as opposed to, you'll never make it. What are you thinking? You know?
Right.
So,
that's interesting.
that's positive.
We've spoken about this in previous episodes as well, but you know, growing up on the East Coast, specifically in South Florida, it is an immigrant community, you know, and a lot of people, you know, specifically when we grew up as well. Prior to, I mean, my dad, he moved to Miami before there was any Cubans in Miami. So Miami was still, you know, predominantly white, and he was the minority. Now it's majority Hispanic, Caribbean, you know, all those types of things. And coming from that sort of community, and I'm going to steal this from Matthew McConaughey, because we talked about this too. It wasn't in the vernacular of our dreams to be able to say, oh, I want to be an actor, or I want to be a filmmaker. I want, you know, anything in the arts, so to speak, because you're kind of gifted with the ability to be in the US. You know, there's this big thing of like, we made it, so now we got to stay here type of thing.
Right.
So it's different. That's interesting. You're right. The juxtaposition of growing up in a place where people are not thrown off by somebody dreaming these out of the box, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, dreams to go after. That's really interesting.
Sure. And my kindergarten and first grade photograph of the school, of the class, you know, everybody standing on the school steps, we were the United Nations. So I grew up in a polyglot of oh, you know, where are you from? You're from India? Oh, that's nice. Oh yeah, my relatives are from here. Oh, you're from Mexico, and what's your lineage? And you're from here, and you're from there. So you're Chinese, you're Korean, or whatever. So we celebrated people's diversity, and it wasn't an us versus them thing. It was hey, I'm this too, or whatever. And it was a celebration of our diversity. So when I, you know, not to get political on y'all, but, you know, when I hear what's going on now lately, is this whole thing, well, we got to keep those brown people out of our country down on the border. It's like, what? Wait, hold on a second. This is what we're all about. I thought growing up, you know, it was kind of like everybody's from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's great, you know, and that was what we were about.
Definitely. And I think that no matter what, I mean, the more, again, even going to, so this is something else that I've experienced as I've gotten older and traveled throughout the United States mainly, is that there's a lot more that brings us together. We have a lot more in common than we have, you know, in distinction. Or maybe I'm saying that wrong. Different.
Exactly.
You know, a lot more. And same thing with you know, South Florida. You go to South Florida, it was a melting pot of people. You know, we had Filipinos, Jamaicans, Haitians, Cubans, South Americans. We had people from everywhere that lived there. right? And then you go even in as I've gotten into the center of the country, I was blown away, like in Oklahoma City, that there were some Hispanic people in Oklahoma City. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would find some Hispanic people in Oklahoma City. You know, Sky shot something over there. I was like, wow, this is incredible. So I understand what you're saying. And I think that one of the beautiful things about where we live is that we have these melting pots of people to be able to be exposed to. You know, I wanted to go back to something else that you were talking about. You said you worked in Japan a lot, and
I wanted to
we're gonna bounce around a lot. This is kind of how this whole thing goes. I did not want to gloss over the Japan thing. How, what, where, why, who? I am obsessed with Japanese culture. So what? Please touch on that.
I know. Well, I tell you, I would never, if you'd have talked to me 25 years ago and you said, oh, you're going to be working and have a relationship in Japan, business relationship in Japan, I'd said, what? Me? No. And that's what are you talking about? Lo and behold, a really wonderful woman who I went to Cal Arts with, who became a costume designer. I gave her her first costume design job on my first feature film. She recommended me to a film school in Tokyo, or to put it this way, to a group of what they call semongakos, which is a vocational school chain. And they were starting a brand new film school, and they were looking for an American film director. And I said, they're not going to take me, but okay. So I wrote out something, and I said, I'd love to do it. And I met with them, and I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. And I handed out stuff like, I was teaching, and they hired me on the spot. And that was in 2002. And so I went over there and was the quote unquote vice principal of a brand new film school. And it was my job to hire the teachers, to sort of give advice on what the building would be. Like, for instance, we want to put the dance floor right above the recording studio. I said, probably not a good idea. Yeah. Why don't we put the recording studio on level 6 and put the dance floor on level 4 so they're not banging up here while we're trying to record sound. And I bought the gear. I ended up deciding what the equipment would be and deciding what the film equipment room policies would be, along with some other people, wonderful people that I was working with there, and designed the curriculum. And I was on the ground floor of inventing a film school. And I'd never had a real person job before. I'd never taught before. I sure as hell had never been the vice principal of a school before, nor did I ever thought I would be. So there I was over in Tokyo figuring out this stuff. And it was a real experience for me. And I've come to the conclusion that the Japanese people are better than anybody else on the planet because the way that you reserve your chair at Starbucks, your seat at Starbucks, is you will take your purse if you're female and you have a purse, or you'll take your cell phone and you'll put it on the table and you'll walk around the corner out of sight of your belongings and you'll order your drink and you'll come back 5 minutes later, and nobody would ever dream of stealing anything from you. Period. End of conversation.
Isn't the penalty there like a lot more severe for things like that?
But people don't do it out of fear.
No, it's just
they do it out of
community, right?
Community and respect. There isn't this fear-based culture of cops walking around with machine guns. Hey thieves, be careful. It's like, people don't do that. Period. But we do, because in America we teach our kids finders, keepers, losers, weepers.
Yeah, true.
Right? You heard that growing up, which is teaching our kids how to steal.
Oh yeah.
Which is the wrong thing to do. Yeah. So I get over here to America and I start to put on my paranoid. It's so different in that regard. And so they don't need foreigners. They don't. They don't need us. Yeah. They don't want us. And in a sense, first I was offended by that because I'm Mr. Polyglot, Mr. American, Mr. I grew up in California, damn it. And then I realized, I get it. Yeah. I get it. They don't need our problems. So they don't. Anyway, so that's Japan. And it's an interesting place to be. I don't know if I'd want to live there and be Japanese and have to work in the culture like that, but to be the guy from out of town who's quote unquote special is a good experience.
How long were you there for in 2002?
I was there for a couple of years, living there 30 weeks out of the year. I had an apartment and I lived there off and on. Yeah, you go a little crazy because you can't, you're not talking to many people in English, but it's a great place and I highly recommend it. So guys, you should visit for sure. And if you do, get the Japan Rail Pass for sure. Okay. Because you can go anywhere in the country. A train ride from like Tokyo to Osaka could be $300, $400. Just a train ride there. So you get the Japan Rail Pass and you can just zip around the country, and you can only get it when you're outside the country.
Oh, so you can't buy it when you're in Japan. You have to buy individual rail passes then if you're in there.
I don't know about buying it in the country, but I know that I think the way they do it is they want it for foreigners to get, so they'll come to the country and you'll have it for like a 3-week period while you're there. Yeah. And then you can travel all over the place. But they don't sell it to people who are living there. I tried to get one when I lived there and they said, no, you live here. And I went, okay, great, thanks.
It's like the European Rail Pass. That's how they do it in Europe as well.
Is that how they do it? Okay,
yeah, they have that. They have those as well.
Yeah. I have a sidebar question because and I'm pretty sure Isaac probably has another question about Japan just because we grew up loving anime. Isaac more so than myself. Like we drew it. I mean, I have a picture up there of like a Dragon Ball Z character.
Cool.
But my sidebar question is, I have two questions. It's a twofold question. What time of the year did you get there in 2002? Like, was it the beginning of the year? Was it before summer?
No, I started there in September.
Okay.
And then I would stay there,
for the school year.
For the school year. But the school year's different there. I'd come home for Christmas. I'd come home for summer briefly. But at one point I had more stuff there than I did here. You know what I mean? Okay. But yeah. Okay.
The reason why I asked that is because the World Cup was in 2002 in Japan. Oh yeah. And it was in Korea, Japan. They hosted it together, but you got there afterwards because it was in the summer. But I wanted to ask, like, how vibrant did the city feel during that time? Because that's the first World Cup I can recall as a young child, because I grew up playing soccer. Soccer was my life for the longest. So
Brazil won that one. Brazil.
Yep, Ronaldo won that one. They beat Germany 2-0 in the final.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah. He actually had the record for the most goals in a World Cup campaign in that World Cup.
Wow.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah. Were there any residuals of that, Doug? Did you feel any of that?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. As a foreigner there who doesn't speak the language, you don't pick up on that kind of thing. And as far as the city being vibrant,
it's always vibrant, right?
Yeah. When 1,000 people get into a train car, it's vibrant, you know what I mean? And you're sandwiched amongst a bunch of people. So there's always energy. The question is, did the World Cup add to it or whatever? It's just such a busy place that, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know if I could have sensed it if not. I apologize.
How do they feel about physical touch there? What's because 1,000 people getting into a train car and you're packed in like sardines, you're bound to touch them. What's like the cultural? What are some cultural differences, like you were saying about people putting down their phone? Nobody would dream of taking it. That kind of reminds me of like weird small towns in the Midwest also, where people will leave their cars unlocked. And like somebody will move their car off to the side if it's in the middle of the road or whatever it is, and leave their keys in their seat or whatever. But what are some cultural, not differences, but just observations that you might have made since you were there?
Sure. Like if you got a kid and the kid comes home with a bicycle, says, "Look what I found." In America, it'd be like, "Oh, great! I don't have to buy you a bike for Christmas." Great. Yeah. But over there, it'd be like, "Okay, hold on a second. Where'd you get it, and who'd you get it from?" Now we got to return that to whoever had it. As far as physical touch, I don't know the hearts and minds of 330 million people, or 130 million people. But I do know that when we are sandwiched on the train, I try to avoid that rush hour, frankly. You get polite, and someone is right there, right smashed up against you, and you just are polite, and hopefully you're wearing cologne, and says the other person, "You don't stink." And then, but they have women only cars at the front of the train, so women aren't pressed up against men, and that's nice.
That is nice.
But there was one thing that I encountered which was very, very challenging for me. Film directing. Okay. Once upon a time, I'm over there and I'm making a short film with my students. And there's a scene where a girl and a guy kiss. To the letter, every actor that I talked to said, we don't do that.
Oh, wow.
And I went, what do you mean? We can't and we don't do that. I said, you mean in real life? Surely we do this in real life. And they said, yes, but the crew is right there. And I said, yes, but you're an actor. Get over it. And I did a scene with a guy and a girl, and they did it. And it was one of the most tender, wonderful love scene, just a little tiny kiss, it wasn't a big deal. And afterward, the guy, after we called cut, he curled up on the floor in a ball, fetal style. And I really do believe that was probably the first time he'd ever kissed anybody.
Oh, wow.
Anybody, I think. And so hugging and public displays of affection are not okay culturally in Japan. And I found out the same thing from one of my Thai students. They said, yeah, not in public. No, it's obscene. It's an obscene thing to do in public. And it's like, I was in a Starbucks with my girlfriend, and I just kind of leaned over and gave her a kiss, and I was nuzzling her nose there, and somebody from behind the counter said, "You can't do that here." Wow. And I went, "I'm in a different culture." Yeah. When my wife was working in China on The Mummy Part 3, they had to tell the staff, the Chinese staff, please don't spit on the office floor.
Whoa.
And they had to say, please, guys, don't spit on the office floor. Now, you and we might wear our shoes inside our house.
Yeah, and they don't. Right.
And they don't. So It's like every culture's got a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know I haven't traveled that much, but I learned that there, which was interesting. So when you asked about the physical proximity thing, to have people kiss to show a public display of affection is a faux pas. Do not do it.
That's so interesting. Just from you even saying that, I'm just rattling in my brain all the Japanese films that I've seen, or just the way that Japanese culture is portrayed in TV and film and things like that. And typically speaking, like when they're in their home, they're not necessarily touching each other, even if it's like the husband and the wife or whatever. They're sitting, they're kneeled, in a dinner scene after dinner. They're just kind of like sitting next to each other, but they're never actually touching each other.
Correct.
Now that you're talking about that is so interesting. Okay.
Sure.
So let's go now. Let's really segue into how you and I met, because you brought up film directing, which is again, thank you for coming on. The esteemed film director, Doug Campbell. That's go ahead.
Well,
what?
At Cafe Con podcast, it would be steamed milk. But thank you for that. I appreciate that.
The froth, the frappe, the frothy Doug Campbell. So Doug and I met because Sky did a film with him. This was before she did her second film with you, which was Vanished in Yosemite.
Yes.
Now that was one of the best experiences as a set husband. That was one of the best experiences that I've had with going on a set for Sky. It was unbelievable. First off, you guys got to shoot in Yosemite, which was outrageous. That's been one of Sky's dreams since she moved out here. Right, was to shoot a film in Yosemite, and she got to do it. Now, the way that all of that came about was so quick. And then I was talking to her yesterday, because I told her that you were coming on today. And one of the things that she brought up, which we can get into as well, was the way that you set the environment of your sets. That the actual set environment itself is very, she said it's this, what was the wording that she used? It was not low key, but she said free. You never made an actor feel like they needed to get something. You allowed the actor to be no tension, be able to do what they needed to do in order to get where they went. And at the same time, when you needed to, you would be very direct in what you needed to get done. right? And when you'd give a note, this is another thing she said, she understood it immediately, which a lot of times it's hard for actors out there that are listening that have gone through this. Sometimes when a director gives you a note, you're kind of like,
what?
Yeah, what exactly you want me?
I was working with an actor just a couple weeks back, and he said a director gave me a note, and the director said, "Hey, you're giving me Jell-O, and I need chocolate chip."
Okay.
Like, what?
Yeah,
what?
I have no idea what you're talking about there. No idea what you're talking about.
I was trying to understand. That's why I said that.
Go ahead.
That's very nice of her to say, but I will say this: when you are as talented as the lovely Miss Coyne, you don't need to direct her much because she's already right there. And she's just not only a great actress, but a great storyteller. She gets the movie. She understands the scenes that you're in, and you can look at it not just from the actor's perspective, but from the storyteller's perspective. And that when you have actors who can do that, man, there's not a lot you got to do as a director. So you can keep your mouth shut
all the time. I tell people that she's the best actor I know, and it's not because, when we were in theater school, if somebody could cry, they'd be like, you're an amazing actor. Has nothing to do with it. She can cry on cue whenever you need to. But the thing with Skye that always baffles me is that she can read something and she just knows where it is in the story and knows exactly what she needs. It's this innate ability that she knows I need to be here in order to get to here in order to finish here. And she knows how to do that and deliver it.
Yeah.
It's one thing to know it, but to be able to physicalize and deliver it, that's another skill set, which she has. So yes, enough about this wonderful human being who lives in my house, because if not, we're going to go down the Skye Coyne. I trust me, I can go down for hours, but I wanted to talk about the way that you that you create the environments on your set. How did you learn to create the environments on your set? Okay. And what are some things that you might employ that, you could tell your younger director self to do now? Okay. What are some of those things that led you to where you are today in creating that environment?
Okay. That's a great question. And it's my acting for film class that I teach, but I'll do it encapsulated. Years back, I studied under Gil Dennis. And he was a terrific writer, and he had some very good advice when it came to how to get great acting in your movies. You do 4 things. Number 1, you write a screenplay or get a screenplay that makes sense, that's clear. Because if it's not clear, no one's going to understand it. But get a screenplay that makes sense. Number 2, surround yourself with a terrific crew and a terrific support staff who are like-minded in the fact that it is about getting great performances, and that set will be a happy, supportive place. If there's and this is me talking, if there's a negative personality amongst that crew, that's going to impinge on the lovely environment of the acting bubble, we fire them, period. We can't have anybody on that set who's going to be negative waves, Moriarty. Can't do it. So that's number 2, get a great crew. Number 3, cast well. Get a fine casting director, Jeff Hardwick, Nicole Dion, Robin Delano. I've been blessed. Aaron Griffith, Laurie Cobe over the years. They've been terrific casting directors in my life, and they find great people. And of course, we're casting mostly here in Los Angeles, California, where we do have a lot of terrific actors. But even if you're casting in Salt Lake City, which I've done, or Vermont, which I've done, there are good actors who will show up. Recognize them and give them, I'm talking to the directors out there, give them 4 pages only of sides that show the arc of the character, that are the toughest scenes that they can do. Don't overload them with 12 pages because they're just going to get crazy. It's stupid. But 4 good, solid pages. Audition them well. I love to audition in the room. Cast the best people you can. And in my case lately, I don't get final say on the leads. I have to send up the food chain my 4 top choices and pray that they like my number 1 choice. But I get to have some say on who the smaller characters are. But you get the best actors you can. And then number 4, you shut up. As a director, shut up. If you've got a script that makes sense and you got a great actor there, what do you got to tell them? What do you got to tell them? You know where chlorophyll comes from because you're shooting on a grassy knoll. I mean, come on, man, shut up. You know, just shut up. You know what I mean? That's half the battle, is just to get my young directors to say, okay. You've told them, you know, a lot of young directors, they get out there and they think, and maybe I was one of them at one point, but I did get this advice early and young, was they'll get out there and they think, I got to talk a lot in order to prove to the crew and to the cast that I know what I'm doing. Yeah. And you're a conductor. You should just shut up and let those wonderful people do their wonderful jobs. And then if you say, oh, wait a minute, go a little left, go a little right, that's your job. You conduct. You don't play the instrument. The worst thing you can do for an actor is say, okay, do it just like this, you know, and then do it. Because then the actor's, you know, performing like you did it, and it's going to be terrible. So, you know, and also the other thing, number 5, which I guess isn't on the list, is if the actor delivers you a performance that isn't what you envisioned, isn't how you heard it spoken in your mind's eye, the dialogue is different or whatever, but it's the same story and it's their interpretation of that moment or that character, you need to embrace it, young director. You need to go, that's not what I expected. But is it in the general range of what we need for the story? And then start to embrace the fact that this actor is interpreting what you wrote or what you read, and they're bringing their spin on it. You don't expect, you're the midwife as the director, and the actor's the pregnant woman, and the performance is the child. You don't yank the baby out of the womb and go, yeah, this doesn't look anything like what I thought it would look like. It's their baby. It's their baby. So that's why you can relax once you have that solid script, once you have those terrific actors, once you have that great schedule, that great crew, then you can relax as a director and go, this is going to happen. The actors are going to say what's on the page. They're going to do what the page tells them to do. And anything that they do, if it's truthful, is going to work. So you don't have to sit there and go, no, it wasn't the way I thought that word would be said. You know, so it's weird. You let go. You get great people and you let go.
That's what I got from that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No,
and what?
I'm talking too much.
No, keep talking.
No.
Don't stop. Keep talking, please. This
sounds
makes our
interesting,
side
though.
awesome.
Because as creators, we love to control the creative process, right? And it sounds like as director, it has to be the complete opposite. Whereas, like, I make music, and now is like when I'm finally realizing, like, I need to let go and collab with people that have a creative mind as well, right? What's better than one mind in the room is two. But that was interesting. You mentioned like being a conductor. I played in an orchestra band in middle school, and so we had more than one conductor, and some of the ones that were the best were the ones that didn't really say much, you know. Or if I was a referee in soccer, you know, there's so much power with that whistle in your hand, but really it's not about the person that has that power, right? You have that power, so you don't have to use it. It's really about the soccer players on the field, you know, the fans, the soccer ball, the story. The story's already written. It's now let them interpret the way they want to, right?
Right.
How,
of course, if it starts to go in a direction, it's like, wait, no, that's not the tone, or that's not the story that we're telling. Yeah. You have to, as the midwife, you have to say, if you don't push hard here, this child will die. You know what I mean? So you have to have that sort of guardrail, and people want to know those boundaries for sure.
I wanted to ask on that. Boundary, how long did it take to like figure out that boundary? How long did it take to realize like I have to let go of some of my control? How was that?
I remember the moment it happened. I was 14 years old. I went out and wrote a screenplay, and my 4 friends and I, we went and did what every 14-year-old did in the 1970s with the Super 8 movie cameras. We went and did a James Bond movie.
Oh,
so we went and did it.
On a Super 8.
I have a question about that because I saw that on IMDb, but go ahead. I have a question.
Anyway, because we didn't have video. And we also didn't have Super 8 sound, so I didn't have sync sound. So actually making movies without sound and forcing myself to write and then direct movies that were completely visual through wardrobe, gestures, facial reactions, signage, just like Chaplin had to do, was terrific training. And I didn't know I was giving it to myself. Okay. But on my first movie, we went out and did this scene, and I brought out my sister to drive her car and my brother-in-law, because we couldn't drive and we're doing a chase scene, right? And my brother-in-law, who was 24 at the time, future brother-in-law, after he saw me screaming at my friends for not reading the script and not knowing what they were doing and not doing that and not doing this, he pulled me aside after that and he said, Doug, you cannot manage people that way. You cannot manage people that way. That doesn't work. And I'll never forget that conversation. He was a bit of a dick, but because what happened with my sister, but in this moment, he was a great guy. And he gave me some of the best advice possible, which you can't lead or organize or manage people with this bully stick.
Yeah.
And you can't get upset. You have to go, oh, you guys didn't read the screenplay. Okay, great. Well, let's read it.
Yeah.
Or we're not prepared right now and I'm not prepared either. Let's figure it out together. And you have to sort of let go of that. So I got that early from him. And then the more I directed actors, the more I realized, just shut up, Doug. They get better when you shut the hell up. So, you know what I mean? And I just realized how much I was, if I was over directing, it was getting bad. And there was another moment too. In 1997, I went and did a film on credit cards, and I was working with Corbin Burnson, who was an actor, very famous actor in the 80s on LA Law. At one point, he was the highest paid actor on television. And I had been directing a long time and prior to that, and I directed television for CBS and blah, blah. Okay. And when I was directing television, I was doing the thing where I would pre-block it in my mind, draw my storyboards, draw my overhead floor plans. I'd get out to that set. I'd block it out. I'd say, okay, she's going to stand here. He's going to go there. He's going to go there, blah, blah, blah. The marks were on the floor before the actors even got there. That's not the way to do it. Corbin came to set. First day working with him. He saw the marks on the floor. He looked over at the monitor where I was standing. He goes, don't pre-block me. And I went, you're right. You're right. I won't do that anymore. And right then, boom, I said, okay, that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it. And so then that begat years later, about 15 years later, I'm teaching at Academy of Art University, and I actually taught a class called Organic Blocking, which is shut up, give the actor the script, let them figure out where they want to go, and then give them a note. Have them find it and then give them a note. Don't come in with this idea. Sure, you might have an idea. Oh, I want him to stand by the window because the lighting's better over there. So what you do is you put the props near the window. So when the actor has to go do the thing, it's like, gee, you're standing right. Well, that's a good place. Good choice, actor. You thought of it, but you can't pre-block, because what happens is it just gets to be A, bad for the actor, and B, it looks stupid. It'll feel forced. So that's why you got to give directors and actors that time on set to rehearse it a little bit. A couple years back, I was directing a movie, and my first AD's like, come on, well, you got to hurry up this rehearsal. I said, Marco, I go, this is my rehearsal. He goes, you didn't have a 3-week rehearsal before shooting? I go, are you kidding? We can't afford that. No, this is my rehearsal. He goes, yeah, but you just met the actor on set. I go, I know. I just met him 10 minutes ago. Give me 5 minutes to rehearse with the guy. Can I please have that? You know what I mean? So I was like, that's the important time that you have to give that actor and that director so they can find it and then go shoot it. And so when they rush through and say, come on, just shoot. It's like, wait, hold on. We haven't figured this out yet, folks. We got to figure it out. So anyway, I'm talking too much, but
no, you're not.
You're awesome.
You ain't talking too much. This is literally just And speaking of Marco, he was the first AD on the movie that I did for Netflix. I don't know if that's the same guy that you're talking about.
Is it Marco Barzellini?
No idea what his last name is, but he had the thickest. He was ripping a vape the entire time. The thickest Italian accent. Yes,
he's wonderful.
Older.
He's
was he an older dude? Is he like an older guy?
Yeah, he's younger than me, but he's
Whoa, you know what I'm saying. I'm saying he's not a spring chicken in his 20s. He's not an AD that's in his 20s.
And he's fantastic.
He's the man.
I'm not disparaging him. He just did not know that I didn't have that rehearsal time.
But
I
that
remember it was
sounds
him.
like him. That's why, because on our movie,
yeah.
all I would hear was Marco saying, "We're losing daylight. We're losing daylight. We gotta go. We gotta go. We gotta go."
Yeah.
That's all that he was saying the
Yeah.
entire time. He is the man. He is such
He's
a
the
nice
man.
guy. So
Yeah.
I wanted. This is all blowing my mind because as a director, like you said, you're kind of like a shepherd. You're herding the sheep going down the right trail, but then if they find whatever, if they find a new trail, you're like, oh wow, as long as it's still going towards the same end goal, whether they take the little path on the right or they take the path on the left, if it's still going to that same place, you're good because that's their interpretation. Just you saying, "Oh, I want them to go by the window, so I'm going to place the props over there." That was mind blowing to me because as an actor, you're trying to find. You said, "I don't know how you memorize lines." You don't. You memorize thoughts. For me, at least, that's what I do. I don't memorize lines. I memorize what is the fluid functional map of this story right now. Oh, well, if I see that, Sky and I were going over some lines yesterday. If I see somebody that says you want some coffee, that line before then has to somehow prompt them to say that line. Your partner says you want some coffee, but if I'm like, going crazy, they're not going to be like, that person needs coffee. You understand what I'm saying? So you memorize what is happening in order to go to where you need to go. So a question that I had was, when you're not getting that truthful representation of the direction you're going to, how do you deal with actors? Because we are very impressionable creatures and actors work in different ways. Artists work in different ways. Some people, like for instance me, you don't have to be precious with me. Don't beat around the bush. You just fucking tell me what you need to tell me, right? But certain other people don't like it when people are a little harsh with them. So how do you, in your experience, what are some ways that you've dealt with actors in order to get that truthful place when you're in a really hard place and they're not getting there? What are some things that you've encountered or you've employed in order to get them there?
It's a great question. And the fact of the matter is, if you do the sides right, and if you do the casting right, you've given them the toughest scenes for them to do. And it's clear on the page what it is that the character needs. If you can get my scripts are probably overwritten, and if the actor isn't saying what's on their mind, they're going to be showing what's on their mind. I'm not going to let any stone be unturned. So I usually don't have that issue. At worst, it will be, let's not forget the given circumstance of this thing, which is, you just found out blank. Oh, right. The actor goes, thank you. Usually I'm just reminding the actor, who's terrific, of the given circumstances, what we are, what we need. Oh, the fact that the guy is right around the corner. Oh, right. It's just reminding the actor of the obvious things of the given circumstances usually gets them there. If you've cast it well, usually gets them there. Now, sometimes you'll give a note. I'll give a note. And this is very, 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 very rare. Give a note, and it's like, okay. How do I say this another way? And I'll try to give them another note. Not result-oriented direction, but an action to play. Judith Weston's verbs. Use them if you can remember them, and try to get them to achieve something. And then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and they keep on delivering it that way, I'll give it 3 tries. And it's like, okay, guess what? That's what it's going to be. Because I'm not going to teach acting on a movie set, nor am I qualified to do so. I'm not an acting teacher or an acting coach. I'm a film director. It's a way different gig. So if I'm not getting what I hoped out of an actor, there's only one person to blame, and that's me. And that's me in the casting process that booked them. So I don't blame the actor for not being able to get there, because I'm going to make the assumption that every actor who's showing up on set is giving their 100%. There was one guy who demeaned the screenplay that he was in. This wasn't too long ago. I'd say about 7 years ago. He was demeaning the scene that he was in. He just thought it was stupid. And I just went, whoa, dude. If you really don't want to be here today, let me know.
Yeah.
Either you believe this fantasy that we're inventing, or forget it, and I'll reshoot. And I had to like lower the boom on him, because it was just like, he just didn't believe the movie.
Right.
He didn't believe the story. He didn't want to be there. So it's like, if you don't want to be here, don't be here. I'll never cast him again. He's gone. But you get that every once in a while where you go, oh, this is bullshit. It's like, okay, if you think it's bullshit and you're just here for a paycheck, boy, you're in the wrong business.
Yeah.
You gotta be here because you love and you believe the fantasy of it. Otherwise, don't show up. Don't waste our time.
No, you're literally holding people's lives back. I heard Penelope Cruz say the other day, she was talking about how in her early days, she would stay in, not necessarily in character, but in the breath of the scene before the scene started, after the scene started. And then as she's gotten older, she's been able to let go, which is kind of tying into what we were talking about a little bit, let go of it, because her acting teacher, I forget what his name is, like Juan Carlos Caraza or something like that. He said, what's more brave than staying in it all the time is separating fiction from reality. So if you're able to bravely let go and, understand and bravely dive off the platform into that fiction when you're on set and believe it, that is more brave than having to almost, manipulate your brain and lie to your brain to stay in it for 24 hours beforehand so you can be there. And she said that's given her more freedom in her work. But that belief is what you were talking about. And you're right. You're in the wrong business if you're just showing up for a paycheck. Because
it's commitment. You commit to the ridiculous given circumstances that you're in. It's like, it is ridiculous. Sometimes it's ridiculous, but you got to commit to it and believe it. Otherwise, that's why, every science fiction movie ever made, every fantasy ever made, every horror film ever made, it's all fake. It's all ridiculous. It's all fantasy. That's the whole point. We're giving people escapism. So to commit to that escapism is our job. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's play. You should come out to play and believe it. It's make believe. So believe it. So anyway, that's the thing. And usually I don't have that much problem with actors because, we get the best we can. And I'm sitting there with just a fountain of riches that the actors are giving. And I shoot the stuff and I hand it to the editor and I go, man, he's got a lot of choices to pick from. They're all good. And that's where you want to be, So
the casting process. Sorry. We all three talked at the same time.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, you could go. I'm not going to forget what I was going to say. Go ahead, George.
Well, it's just no. You can go ahead because it's more of like a question to double back on something that he mentioned.
Okay.
Earlier,
well, I was going to just mention you were talking about the casting process in your 4 things. Which to go over those 4 things, number 1 was script, number 2 was crew, number 3 is casting, and number 4 is shut up. Right, and then the number 5 is if they're giving you a different. Number 5 was interpretation. Right, and it's like that's a little annex. Right, as long as you're going to the same place, it's good. Now I wanted to talk about the casting process because I love what you said. You said don't overcast it, and what I mean by that is don't overpack the casting process by giving an actor 12 pages to do.
Yeah,
when you
it's a wasted. Yeah,
I can't tell you how many auditions we've done, which is 3 scenes, and 2 of the scenes are the same exact scene, but they just and it's like 7 pages of the same thought process and where the character's at in this storyline. It's like, why are we doing 2 of the same exact scenes? And then they have another scene that it's like, if you could have just done this scene, you would have seen that end of the character and then chosen one of the other 2 to see the other side of the character. But why we're having to put on tape 14 pages? And a lot of the times, you can't help but think as an actor, are they going to watch all 14 pages of my audition? You understand?
Barely,
that's what I mean. So it's like,
I do.
So I commend you for that, where it's like, let's just give them the toughest material, see what they do with it, and then adjust from there.
Right. And I will credit Jeff Hardwick, casting director, my good friend, who would tell me when I would come in with 6 pages of sides for people, he'd say, Doug, come on, man. Knock this down. They've got lives. And if you can't figure, he never said this, but I'll say it. If a director can't figure out after 4 minutes of watching an actor if they can act or not, then the director needs to go back to decision-making school. I'm sorry. So respect the actor. Give him those sides. And by the way, I will pick the sides. oftentimes, probably more often than not, directors are quote unquote real busy and they don't want to pick the sides. They leave that to casting. And what does casting do? They hand it to the assistant that might be their first time on a movie, and they're working in the casting office, and they'll pick the scenes, and they don't know. They just picked up the script yesterday. So the guy who writes the script, yours truly, or works with the actor on the script, yours truly, I go through the whole script and I capture the scenes, copy and paste the scenes for this character that are the most important if it's the lead, and I'll have a 23-page document of sides. And then I will whittle and whittle and whittle and go, wait, this is the same moment. We understand this about her. We don't need this scene because we've already got that moment earlier. So show her acting opposite this character in this moment of the story. Show her acting opposite this other character at this point in the story. Show the arc of the character. So you're right. You're not repeating the material, and you're able to see, does the actor have range? And so whittling that down. Now, I wish we would get back in the room where I could give notes and be in the room with the actor.
Yes.
I miss that process.
Yes.
But a lot of actors do like the fact that they don't have to slug through traffic and wait in a room and blah, blah. It can take up all day. Yeah. And I don't think it's ever coming back because people are realizing, we can do it without it.
And they're saving a lot of money. They're saving a lot of money on space and renting space. I just wish we could do something like a hybrid of such where
I know,
even if it's on Zoom, and because that's the other thing as an actor, it's nice to be able to have the freedom to do it when you can do it and choose which take you want to send in. We're talking about self-tapes here, George, where everything is done over self-tapes now. Yeah. But it's kind of like you're throwing a dart at a dartboard, and you're almost like with one eye open, you're hoping that you hit whatever they're wanting, whereas in the room, it was a lot more of a, like you were saying, the given circumstances, that's where somebody can be like, I can't tell you the jobs that I have been blessed enough to go on. I've had casting directors say, the first time that was great. This guy, all he wants is to get the job done. So just get the job done. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I see the urgency that I need to do the scene with. Or it's something as simple as, hey, this person's over here and the other person's on this side of the camera. So when you talk over here, then talk over there. I was like, okay, I was going to do that anyways, but thank you for doing that. Now I know a direction in which you want to go down. So I think the hybrid, I hope at least there is a hybrid of room and self-tape, because self-tape sometimes just kind of become a void, and it's just kind of the throwing it out there and seeing what happens type of thing.
Yeah. And I, for all the actors who might be tuning into this and hearing us discuss this, I hope that most actors who have done the work for the audition and memorized their lines and done the scene study for it and figured out, the moments, the beats, made the choices, and they deliver that in their audition, and then they don't book the role. I hope that they don't go home thinking, God, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? It's like you didn't do anything wrong. You just happened to be amongst 5 or 6 other fantastic finalists who were as good. And that other person got it because of whatever. They looked a little bit more like the brother, or that would be more appropriate for who the character is, or something minuscule that they did, said something. So don't beat yourself up. If you know that you did all your homework and you delivered, pride yourself on that and just say, okay, move on. If you can do that. And we all do it as artists. I go, God, what? I was in an interview and I didn't get the job. What could I have done? Not much. You are who you are. You give out your best. It's either going to happen or it's not. And we have to learn how to let that go. And it's easier said than done. I know that. I know it's easier said than done. But it's my little love letter for actors who I don't book. You don't know. I can't tell you how many times I've booked a show and I've just been heartbroken for the 2, if not 3 other people for that role that it got down to that could have done it too, who'd have been great. And it's like, well, they're never, I'm not allowed to call them up and tell them, hey, you were so good. But they should know that. I hope they know that. I tell that to actors a lot. And it's like, hopefully that helps the process, because it is brutal. It's like, why didn't I get the role? It's like, it's a game. It's a numbers game.
Yes, it is. That. Thank you for that.
It is.
That helps a lot. And I actually have a question.
Yeah.
Or George, you can ask what you were asking before, because I won't forget what I was going to ask.
Before I ask, that's interesting, because I think as humans we all go through like, when you're looking for a job and you're in an interview and you're like, man, I know I got that job. Like I did a great interview.
Yeah.
And as humans, every so often here and there, we're looking for new jobs. But as for an actor, it's every time you're going to act. So that's got to be gut wrenching, or just like
It's gut wrenching. Yeah.
it's definitely
what?
a punch in the gut, that you're constantly,
I know.
you're constantly auditioning, and you feel like you did what you had to do. And then it's just, you don't get to the position. But the question I had, Doug, because I'm a creative as well, but I'm not an actor by any means. I'm not in film by any means. I deal with music and sound engineering. So I think that with Isaac and I, we're on a similar wavelength, but we both have questions in different ways and just in different endeavors. So my question was, it's a very simple question. It's probably very easy to answer, but this is probably for the listeners that aren't in film. It's just real quick, is what is Super 8 film, and like what goes into using that? Because I read on your IMDb that you used it at 14, and that sounded, I mean, I know somewhat of what it is, but I want to hear the ins and out of it, of what makes it so special. And it's still, it seems like a lost art, but people are still using it. And then my next question after that, it's a very generic question, but I like to ask this question. It's kind of revolving theme of like, when did you know you wanted to do what you're doing now? Because you did that at 14, and like I said, it's a generic question, but I always find that the answers are very like eye opening of what was going through your mind as a young child that made you want to do what you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, okay. What Super 8 is and is basically, everybody now has a movie studio in their pocket called their smartphone. Well, when Grandpa here started making his little movies, we used somebody's dad's home movie camera that would shoot on 8mm film, 35mm film. If you can see my hand, 35mm is like that. It's 35mm across. 8mm is only 8mm. So Super 8 was single perf. There's a perforation only on one side of the film as opposed to two perforations. So that allowed the frame to be a little bit bigger. But regardless, what it was basically the home movie camera of its time that every dad, every mom had to film the kids growing up, And so you could also make a regular movie, a dramatic narrative movie with it. So we would just borrow what we had. We did not have video. This was way before, home video existed. So that's what we had to use. And it's a pain in the ass, but you learned a lot. If you go see the Fablemans. If you've seen the Fablemans, what Spielberg was doing on that little wind up toy, I did the same thing. And you know what? What pissed me off is that I even learned something when I was watching that movie. I realized, oh wait, he did little pin pricks for gunshots in the film. And I'm thinking, why didn't I think of that? That's a great idea. So that's what Super 8 was. And then as far as when did I know I wanted to do this? Well, it's weird. My evolution into film directing started just with creative making of imagery, whether it be drawing or comics, or when I was 10, my friends and I would put on little skits for the class that we would write, and we'd put them on. We'd write them over the weekend, and then we'd put them on the next Friday, and we'd practice. The teacher would give us time to rehearse, and so we had a little troupe, that would put on these silly skits, and they were, of course, when you're 10, what they're going to be. But it's good practice because it puts you in the practice of like, okay, writing dialogue, writing a script, giving it to actors. Okay, now you're going to do this, and you're going to do this. We're doing it at 10.
Wow.
And then that became Super 8 film. And so, but I never thought that it was a job. I never thought that it was a career. I didn't look at it as like, there's a career out there for me, and I'm going to go do this. In fact, this is how ignorant I was. I was at UCLA in 1981, going through the course catalog in somebody's dorm room there. And I realized, holy crap, they give a degree for this? I go, I do this for fun in the summers with my friends. they give out film degrees for this? And my buddies went, yeah, knucklehead, they do give out film degrees for this. It's called the UCLA Film Program. And I go, oh, I didn't even know they had that. And I was at the school. That's how ignorant I was. So I didn't know, I never equated making movies, even though I grew up in LA, I never equated that with a career or a job because it was just something I did for fun. And then lo and behold, slowly I started to realize, oh, I can do this for a college degree. Oh, I could do this and actually get paid for it. Oh, wait, they're paying me for it. Holy crap. Now they're continuing to pay me for it. Well, this is interesting. This is just something I do for fun. So it was this sort of dumb realization. And I teach now, and I've been teaching for 20 some odd years, and I will oftentimes get the student who comes into the classroom and says, can I talk to you privately about life and my career? And they're full of nerves. And it's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to be a success at this. And I'm going, I don't know if I'm ever going to make another film again. I've done 57. I may never get another one. I don't know. Every time out, you just don't know. But what you do know is that you love doing this. So just do it. Mm-hmm. And I hate to say it as lofty and poetically as that, but literally just put the blinders on and just go make movies. And the rest of that's going to happen. So I sort of started swimming in it before I knew what it was that I was in. And then, it just sort of started to happen. And that's how it's just strange. I started, when I got out of Cal Arts, I partnered up with a couple friends and we put together a trailer and we put together a script and we luckily found guys who were willing to raise money. So there I was at age 24 with $1 million budget and Airflex cameras and a 30-day production schedule. And Sharon Bialy was my casting director, and I had Ray Wise and Clancy Brown. I mean, I had all that stuff. And
Clancy Brown, his voice.
I had Clancy Brown. Oh yeah, Clancy Brown, yeah. And I was very, 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 I was overly lucky because I'd only been making films for 10 years and I got my first feature at 24 years old. And, I didn't write the best of all screenplays, to be honest. And that was the downfall of the project. But it did get acquired by MGM UA. It played at the Cannes market. It did get theatrical release, a limited theatrical release in this country, et cetera. And so that got me started, sort of, but it didn't really open any massive door where it was just like, oh, great, you've made this film. You've won Sundance, which I did not. And here's a directing career. It doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. I was up and down. I did my first feature film and then I was back at the restaurant. And then I did 2 more feature films and then I was back at the restaurant. And I've been back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So it's a journey. It's never been just open the door, here's opportunity, and you're set. You're always back to square one. You're always trying to find that next gig. Everybody's a buyer and a seller. And it's just the accepting of that treadmill, of that never-ending treadmill of, well, maybe I won't work again, but I'm going to try. Maybe they won't give me money again to make a film, but I'm sure as hell going to try. And just keep at it. Just keep at it. It's like what actors have to do. You might get out, you might be a series regular on a show and the show ends and you go, holy shit, am I ever going to work again? I got to go out on audition. I'm a series regular. I've had series regulars who were the leads come in and read for me. It's like, why are you reading for me? You were a series regular. Well, that's our business. So it's the ups and the downs. Just stay in it. So that's the long story short.
Yeah.
Is just, just stay in it and just do it.
And you build this, like you said, the treadmill. You eventually build the muscle resiliency, I guess, to get to where you need to go. Yeah. Two things that you were talking about, they reminded me. I've heard a lot of people talk about after they win an Oscar, right? Oscar winners, they win the Oscar, and the next day they're like, what do I do now? They fall off the cliff. They thought that they've reached the so-called proverbial pinnacle. And then you get there and it's back to square one again. Oh my God. What's my next job? That's right. It's the same, but that's right. I hear Ethan Hawke talk a lot. I feel like Ethan Hawke has become this sort of, this undeclared spokesperson for actors because he talks so much about having the bravery to go out and be that court jester and the the nobility that is involved in being an actor and all these types of things, and how it is that back to square one, but it's so exciting. It's so good to be able to do that. And you don't need to be an actor on film or TV or stage in order to be an artist in life. Everybody can be an artist in their own way. And I've been with my manager for about 7 years now. He told me a story that he was in New York once, just sitting in on this class, and he saw Ellen Burstyn was in the audience, right? And he was like, oh, maybe she's going to be like a guest speaker at this acting class. And, the scenes are going on stage. And then he sees Ellen Burstyn get up and she starts setting up on stage. Ellen Burstyn's won an Academy Award, George, just so you know who she is. Okay. And if you've seen her, she's the woman at the end of Interstellar that's Matthew McConaughey's daughter. She plays his daughter. She was also in
the old lady,
Exorcist.
The old lady.
But Exorcist, she's been in Requiem for a Dream. She's a great actor. Anyways, awesome. He sees Ellen Burstyn start setting up on stage, and she does a scene. And she gets off stage just like a student. And he went up to her afterward. He goes, listen, I'm a huge fan. I just have to ask you, what are you doing here? And she goes, what do you mean? What am I doing here? This is what I need to do. I can't, when I'm not shooting, I need to be working. If I don't, I feel I'm rusty. Right. And there are certain people that I know that don't do acting class, whatever. Everybody has their own way. But that whole idea of just, it's a lifelong, it's not even lifelong, it's just day to day. It's a day to day thing. Right. Every single day you wake up, you got to do the next thing. You got to do it. It just is what it is. That's that treadmill, like you were saying. And then to go back to what I was going to ask was, we were talking about, which really helped me when you were saying you're an actor, you put yourself on tape, you don't get the job. And you just think to yourself, what did I do? Did I do something wrong? You said it's not you, it's other, you were just up against 5 or 6 other people that had great self-tapes. So my question is, immediately, what are the things that catch your eye for an actor when they start the self-tape, right? What is the thing that you see is either good or, this is not so good, right? When you see the self-tape, right? Because I know it's that right in the beginning. What are some things that you, as a director, notice that you're like, oh wow, that's interesting, right? Or nah, it's not so interesting. What are some of those things for actors when they're turning in a self-tape? I know that that's a very broad question, but what are coming to mind? Is it like walking in with a certain energy, coming from somewhere else beforehand? Like what is the thing that you notice?
Sure. It's the thing that always impresses me when actors do their audition, whether it be in the room or on a self-tape, is when you get a sense that they know the story and they know the character and they do know the moment before and they do know their objective and they've done their homework. And if I see that they've done their homework, okay, now I know why my casting director shows them to me. Okay, great. That person's a contender. Then it gets down to, okay, are they the look? Are they too big, too little? I mean, are they pushing it? Usually, film actors sometimes have the tendency to just push a little bit more, overact just a little bit, but they don't. A lot of people are playing a lot. So, it's just that. Have they made the choices, and are they listening, and are they reacting, and are they taking advantage of everything that they can in that screenplay that is there for them? Have they done their work and made choices? And that's it. And do they believe it? And are they truthful? So all those things. Right. If I see that someone's phoning it in, they're phoning it in. If I see someone's glancing at a page, I go, well, they're not prepared for this audition. How prepared will they be for you on set? If they're not off book for an audition, and I hate to say that because a lot of actors are like, God damn it, I don't want to be off book for an audition. That's a lot of lines to memorize. But if they're not off book for the audition, and I've only given you 4 pages, chances are you're not going to be off book when we shoot.
Right.
And the person before you and after you that auditions is off book has made those choices. So it's a free acting day. Do all the work that you need to do. And I know it's a lot of work. And I wish I could cast everybody, because I know that any decent actor who's put in the effort to be off book and know the lines and have made choices, they've spent a couple hours preparing for this audition, and that's a lot of time out of somebody's life. So, et cetera, et cetera. It's that thing. It's the truth. Am I getting a sense that they believe it, that they're there, that they're truthfully home? And then we go from there. Yeah. And if they don't, and then it's like, okay, if that person is not the look for the character, I'm sorry, they could be fantastic, but you're not the look for the character. I have yellow teeth. I will never be an actor in front of a camera, period, end of conversation. So, dude, if you don't look the role, or they can't put your face on TV, there's a thing called theater. Yeah. And I would be fantastic. I would be, if I was going to be an actor, I'm serious. If I was going to be an actor, I'd be an actor on the stage.
Oh man.
But an actor in close up with the way I look, no, it's not in the cards for me. Period. It just isn't.
I also,
luckily I didn't want it. So
I mean, you could be an actor in the 18th for like a old English period drama.
Yes, I could. Yes, I guess I
have. And by the way, I love your teeth. That is, I would just had to make a jest.
Thank you very much.
I had to make.
No, I'm just saying. Thank you, but I don't have those looks that the movies need.
Sure.
And some people do. You do. And your camera loves you, so it's like, get out there and just keep on showing that beautiful face.
It's a vain industry too. That's the one thing you got. It is what it is. There is a certain sense of vanity that's attached to this industry, whether you like it or not, but it's because of that. Yeah. It's a visual medium. So there has to be some sort of vanity attached to it.
And even if you're a character actor who isn't going to, I don't think Paul Giamatti is going to grace the cover of GQ anytime soon. But do we want to watch Paul Giamatti? Yes. We want to watch Paul Giamatti.
Yes.
Because he's a character and you like looking at him and he fits the role and he's got presence and he's got chops. So it's like, know your product.
Yeah.
And, it's a hard thing because it's so personal. It's like, that's what you are. I can hide behind a screenplay or an edit of of a movie that somebody else was the cameraman on, and I can hide. But actors can't necessarily hide. They just have to go, here's it. This is it. I'm the product. So it's a hard thing.
Truth. Anyway, that's truth. Yeah. That was another thing that you were talking about. This you brought over another question that I had laying in there. You said that sometimes film actors have a tendency to overact. That's what I was going to ask. What is harder? What is harder to do? Is it harder to reel somebody back or to have somebody go more? To reel them up, I guess.
It's so much easier to just say to the actor, "Get great choices. Next take, just bring it down, just less." In fact, I've had actresses come to me. I'll never forget it. She pulled me aside and she said, "I know you've booked me and I know you like me, but I have a tendency to go big. Will you watch me? Will you make sure that I don't go big?" I said, "I will watch you like a hawk, and if you go big, I'll tell you." She goes, "Thank you." So everybody does it. And then there's the wonderful story that Dustin Hoffman tells in the Marathon Man DVD, which I probably mentioned to you when we were in Yosemite. I don't know. But it's a wonderful tale that he tells. And we all know the story of, Dustin Hoffman being told by Laurence Olivier for that film, when he had to
acting, dear boy,
get out of breath. Yeah. Why don't you try acting?
And he's riding by on the golf cart. That whole story. Yeah. Yes.
Something like that. But then Dustin Hoffman tells another story. And there's another story where they did a take and Sir Laurence Olivier, the greatest actor of the 20th century, if those of you who don't know who he was, he does a take and John Frankenheimer calls cut, and young Dustin Hoffman, his second or third major motion picture, came up to John Frankenheimer, the director, and said, "You know what, on the last take, I think Lord Olivier was a little bit big. You want to talk to him about that?" And John Frankenheimer said, "If you think I'm going to go up to talk to Laurence Olivier and tell him he was big, you got another thing coming. I'm not going to do that." He says, "You do it." He says, "Okay, I'll do it." So there is young Dustin Hoffman, all 5'1" of him, walking up to Laurence Olivier, the greatest actor of all time, and walking up to him and saying, "Excuse me, Lord, on that last take, I think that you were a little." And Laurence Olivier turns to him and he goes, "Was I too big? Were you saying that I'm too big?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, you kind of were." And apparently Laurence Olivier glared at him and he leaned in close and he said, "Thank you." Everybody does it. Everybody does it. And our job as a director is to just go, no matter who you're working with, whether you're working with God or you're working with some actor who just got out of high school, your job is to say, great, bring it down. Or great, push, or whatever. That's our job. So it's okay. I'd rather have them have a lot more to give than to have no range whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Paul,
Any
and
day
we
of the
all
week.
go and
Any day
we
of the week.
all go through the same things. That just reminded me of another story that I heard of Paul Newman on Road to Perdition. I believe it was Road to Perdition, that he had to give this one. I think it was the first day of filming. It was a funeral scene, and he had to give a speech in the funeral scene. And Paul Newman is another actor, George, that is like esteemed actor, right? On the up there.
Yep.
And the first take, they went up, they did the first take, he did it, they yelled cut, and right after they yelled cut, Paul Newman was like, oh, thank God that's over. Because he was like, oh God, I was shitting my pants. The first take, he goes, I always shit my pants the first take. It's nobody is immune to those same, especially as an actor. That's something else that you realize. I had a working actor of mine that I met not too long ago say, when you realize, and he worked with Bryan Cranston, all these people, he goes, you realize the people that are up there and where you are, and the separation, that margin of separation is a lot smaller than you think it is. It's not as large. It's not a canyon that separates you from them. Everybody is the same. It's just that little, as you were saying, you're not off book, but these other people are. That's the same thing with pro sports. The margin of difference from good to great, right? Like in the NBA, everybody's a great basketball player in the NBA. A regular Joe Schmo plays anybody. The person that gets 1 minute every 14 games, you play against them, you're going to lose by 35 points. You're never going to beat them. But the margin of difference between those guys who never play and then the top, the LeBron James, whatever, the top there is very small margin, but it's that little thing. It's that extra effort. It's that muscle memory that you've worked up. Right, so you've memorized the four pages. You've done the work. You've committed to the fantasy, to the fiction. Those
seems like every walk of life is like that.
Yep,
like it's like they say in sports.
It's not it's
crazy. It's crazy.
They say in sports. Go ahead.
That like at least in high level sports, it's like everybody's good. It's not who's better than the other person. It's just who's making less mistakes.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah,
less forced errors.
Yeah.
Well, it's not uncommon for the number one on the call sheet, the lead, the name actor, to not be nearly as good as the people who are up and coming or unknowns. I've been on several sets where my lead was definitely not as talented and not as solid as the people who were unknowns. In fact, one person whose name will go unmentioned had a 6-page scene to do in a film that I was doing, and he was opposite an very wonderful series regular actress. And he started getting the sweats, and he started to panic, and he just kind of fell apart. And I asked everybody to leave the set, and I talked to him privately. And he goes, I never learned how to do this. And this guy lived in a mansion in Malibu because he was a series regular on a television show. And he said, I was going to go to Goodman. I was going to go to college in Goodman at the acting school in Chicago. I think it's Chicago, right? And he goes, but the phone rang, and it was a soap opera. The problem was this guy was so beautiful. He was just so beautiful, so handsome, so gorgeous that the doors just opened up for him. So there he was, he just got into boom. He won the DNA lottery, so he got an acting career, and he learned, and he was doing it before he never really learned how to do it. So there he was on set with me when 6 pages of drama, bro.
Yep.
And he did not have it. And he goes, I never learned how to do this. And he was living in his mansion in Malibu from an acting career.
Right. No craft. That's something you experience that I've experienced since moving out here as well, have been what I like to call the barista actors, right? So you go and you're talking to them and they're like, yeah, I'm an actor. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And I actually learned this from Sky. I do not ask, what have I seen you in? I don't, as an actor, I know what that question is, because then I'm like, well, it depends on what you watch. It's one of those things. So I always try to ask something to put the onus on them, which is, oh, so what are you working on? Right. And they're like, I'm working on a script. Everybody has a script they're working on. I say, are you in a class? Nah, I don't believe in classes. Are you reading some books? No, I just act. I'm like, okay, thank you. I'll take my latte now. Because there's so many people that don't understand the effort it takes into the actual craft itself. And I do have to say, don't take yourself seriously, take the work seriously. That's something that I abide by. I understand. We're playing make-believe. You go on there, you got to take the work seriously. But I'm not somebody who's like, you do your own thing. I can handle what's in my own possession. But it's that learning of the craft. That is one thing that I will say. You watch. Yeah. I'm a fan of Oppenheimer. I watched it and I thought it was great. Right. And I watched somebody like Cillian Murphy, even Robert Downey Jr., who was on there. And I'm like, damn, those guys have dedicated themselves to learning the craft of it. You can tell craftsmen from people that aren't, that necessarily give a shit about it, right? And it definitely makes a difference when it comes to something like that. That's why it's important, right? As a director, do you find that this is another random question, and we're going to start wrapping up now because we have lives, and we thank you for your time. But as a director, do you find people who have a background in studying acting, does that make a difference when they come on set and things like that?
Sure. Oh yeah. They're the best actors I've had a pleasure to work with have been people who started out doing it very, very young, might have had series when they were a kid, were child actors, worked their way up. They're just completely natural. They grew up on a movie set. The artifice of it all doesn't bother them. They're completely comfortable. They're able to take direction. It's second nature to them. When you come into acting late in life, I found you have all of these other pressures on you, I think, that are nullifying or stunting your relaxation, and you're thinking more than you are feeling and living and playing and make believe. And so if you're coming into acting late and you're really, really good at it, good for you. You're rare. But oftentimes, if that's the case, you're the Gene Hackmans of the world. Those people who started when they were 35, or Morgan Freeman apparently starting when he was 40 or something like that. I can't remember. God bless them. I mean, it's rare. But those who have been doing it a long time, who have the time and grade, are natural at it, or whatever, have that practice, they're the best ones to work with for sure. Are there people who are just naturally gifted at it, who are comfortable in their own skin and can take direction? Yeah. I did a film a couple of years, like 2 years, not last year, the year before, with a guy who came out to act, and he was out in LA for 3 months, and he booked a series. 3 months. He was in LA and I said, Michael, his name's Michael Evans Bailey. He's a wonderful guy. He's a terrific actor, and he's gorgeous, and he's tall, and he's a wonderful actor. I said, Michael, you're the problem. I said, you're the guy who goes to Vegas and wins millions of dollars by putting a dime in the slot machine. And he goes, I'm so fortunate. I'm so lucky. But right place, right time. He's talented. That's the other thing too. He's talented. God bless him. Stroke, lightning in a bottle for him. Fantastic. And I don't know how much practice he had before that. Some, but not years and years and years. But he's very, very good. So there are those too. But I would rather work with people who know the craft. I would rather work with a seasoned television actor, or somebody who was on a soap, or somebody who grew up in acting, a child actor who's done a lot of theater or whatever, than the problem actor who gives you this amazing performance and he may only give you that one take, but my God, it'll be brilliant. No. I'd rather have somebody I can work with and get 4 great takes out of them, as opposed to somebody who's only going to be able to do it once for you, and then they got to go get drunk. I want the person who's a solid rep theater actor. Those are the people I like working with. I like working with people who can do it again and again and again, and like to rehearse and like to play.
That sounds a lot like theater. You like to work with an actor's actor. That's the thing. The people that are they get turned on by the craft of it. Like when people start talking about all this stuff. And something else, I took a class out here when I first moved out here. I studied at Stella Adler, And something that I took from it, because I mean, I got my degree in theater and I've been whatever. I have background in it. So I took the 101 class, the Tech 1 class, and one of the things that always stood out to me was imagination under given circumstances. So I'm tying this back into the beginning of what we were talking about. So you just have to remind the actor of the given circumstances and also believing in the actual reality or the fiction of what you're doing. That is one of the things that I think you're set from what I was talking to Sky and just talking to you now for this short amount of time we've had. You allow people to live in that imagination. You remind them of the given circumstances, but you also know how to endorse a set by picking the right people that come on that give it to be a fertile ground for creativity. Because a film set is anything but peaceful for actors. There's people moving everywhere. We're losing light. Let's move that. We got to move that C-stand over here. Where are the grips? Are they smoking a cigarette? Can somebody go and get them? There are literally so many things. I need a sandbag. There's so many things that are happening. And I listened to Javier Bardem talk with off camera Sam Jones. He was talking about how when he's not able to get somewhere, he needs silence. And that's the thing that allows him to create is from places of silence. And a movie set is anything but silence. So just from the short time speaking with you and from Sky's experience, you give people that ability to find that peace to be able to create. So I wanted to commend you for that. And I wanted to thank you also. I know I thanked you in Yosemite as well, but she's loves you and loves
her too.
everything
She's
that
fantastic.
you do. So
let's do a movie with the both of you.
Hey, sign me up, brother. We talked about it. We've talked about it. And that is something that, again, going back to the treadmill, just a little, personal anecdote for myself, in how this business is so day to day. I shot that Netflix movie. It was number 2 in the world for like 3 weeks. And then I didn't work for like 2 years.
Oh,
so
which film was this? I should.
It was called That's Amor. That's Amor on Netflix.
That's Amor.
Yeah, and I play a Spanish chef, and it's like a rom-com, and I'm like the lead love interest. But the point of that is to go back to what you were saying, and what we've touched on here is that you got to be. This ain't for the paycheck, because it comes and it goes. It's really like surfing. You hit a wave, you ride it, you look back, and you go, well, it's time to paddle back out there to try and hit another wave,
Right.
And it's just speaking to you, the way that you champion actors, the way that you're on their side. I think for anybody who is an actor that's listening to this is going to be a really important, just personal, reflection that'll help them.
Well, good.
So this was really, really lovely. And we close out all of our episodes with 2 questions. So I'll ask mine and then George will ask his. So my question, I've always had this idea of a steel tissue for whatever reason in my head. And the reason why is because a tissue can wipe away, a teardrop, or it can wipe away a drop of blood. So it can satisfy both sorts of functions. Now, my question is, what are some things in your life that have made you the most resilient and some of the things that have made you the most vulnerable? Because I think both those things kind of go hand in hand with being an artist. And it doesn't have to be super deep. All right? We don't have to get super deep on these. It can be very surfacey. It can be like, well, just being in this industry, whatever it is. But just what are a couple of things that have made you, or just one of each? What is something that has made you resilient in your life and something that has made you vulnerable in your life?
Well, I don't know if I'm resilient. I hope I am. When I get a note or I get a bad comment or whatever, it still hurts. There's no doubt about it.
That builds resiliency. That builds it.
It sure does. By the way, there was a guy doing a podcast and he was going over my IMDb and just saying, "Oh yeah, this is crap. This is crap. This is crap." It's like, well, he wasn't even watching any of the movies that I'd made. But he just decided to look at my IMDb.
Were you on this podcast while he was doing it?
No. They were talking about me, and it was like, I want to say, well, why don't you at least take the time to watch one of these films, for Christ's sake?
Thank you, fucker. I appreciate. I thank you for watching and for having an opinion. You're paying my bills. I appreciate it, bro. Thank you.
And then another review said, one guy said, "Okay, I've watched this film all the way through now twice, and I can tell you that it's a bad film." And I'm like, dude, I got you to watch it twice. So, shut up already. But I don't know if I'm that resilient. I still am very, very sensitive. I think if there's any resilience, it's the understanding that this isn't the last movie that you'll make. This isn't the last scene that you will write. This isn't the last edit that you will do, the last mix that you will do. If you get it wrong, keep moving. You'll fix it next time. Or if it doesn't, people don't like it for whatever reason, keep moving. Do it again. Do it again. It's taking the pressure of this is the only film you'll ever make off of you. Take it, it's not. If you're going to be around a long time, it's not going to be. So, you do your best, and you do your best each time out. And then what was the other thing? What makes me vulnerable?
Yes.
What makes me vulnerable? Everything. I mean, I'm scared of everything. What makes me vulnerable? I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, well, okay. I think I know what you're getting at. Maybe you're saying what makes me vulnerable so I can work with certain material or whatever.
Sure. Whatever.
Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah. Today, yes, that's what I get at.
Okay. Well, I mean, I was raised by women mostly, and that's no surprise that I get to work with women now at my age and enjoy it a lot. I like working with women. I like telling women's stories, and it fits. I never have had a problem with an actress. I've only had a few problems with a very few actors, male actors. So I think that's what it is I'm very much in touch with that feminine side of myself. And I can say, I understand that it's okay to be emotional, and it's okay to go there. When I have big hulking actors, burst into tears when they find out their child has died, and they do it. And these guys look like they could work for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I realize that vulnerability is a talent, and being able to access that as a talent and a gift. And so when an actor can do it, I sure as hell better be able to do it when I write or when I'm listening to an actor and vibing what they're doing on set. I'd better be able to be sensitive to that. So that vulnerability, I think, is an attribute. It's not a detriment, frankly. I think it's a good thing to have, to be vulnerable and to go, this hurts and I get it, or I'm sad, and to be honest about it. That's what we do. We're purveyors of emotion. So it's okay to do that. And I haven't figured everything out. Believe me, I'm learning every day. I'm going, okay, new lesson today. Everything's, I want to start this pod. I want to rewind and put this at the front of the podcast because I've done a couple of podcasts. But for the record, I don't know anything. The older I get, the more I don't know. So I'm only telling you what I think I'm starting to barely understand. So I don't know everything of what I do. I'm still learning. Student mentality. You betcha. So
that was awesome.
I hope that
answered 100%. That answered the question, and that's perfect. We're gonna give a little teaser in the intro of this podcast to say, wait until the end for something that he wished he would have said at the beginning. That's what we're gonna say. They'll have to listen to the whole thing. All right, George, close us out, brother.
But before I ask my question, I definitely want to say for the vulnerable part, that's probably my favorite response we've had since we started this podcast. How you said that. Okay. For me personally, like I don't mind being vulnerable. I think as of recently, I've realized that like I use it as my power, but the way people react to it, it's kind of can throw you off sometimes. But I think just owning that.
Do you write music?
I write music. Yeah, I write music. So it's a very vulnerable, process, and just
sure.
It just
way to live. You got to bleed the truth for us to care about that song.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I would say in other endeavors of my life, I let that bleed into it as well. It's just sometimes the reaction you get from people that you're being vulnerable, it's like a lot to handle because they don't know how to probably be vulnerable. But
I know.
I think what you said about like using your vulnerability as like a tool or like as like a power, aspect is important for people to listen to. And,
I think it's vital.
So I really like that response you gave.
Especially if I tell my directing students and my writing students this, you expect to call action and get this amazingly raw, truthful, emotional performance from an actor.
Yeah.
But you're not putting that in the writing.
Yeah.
You're not putting that in the directing. No, you've got to be as emotional as them. So I say, get out of my directing class and go take improv acting.
100. I'm so happy you said that. I think improv should be a necessary thing to take for anybody that wants to get into filmmaking, whether it's an actor, director, producer, whatever. I think improv is vital. And the last note before I didn't mean to step on your last question, George, but one thing I want to say as an actor, you got an actor needs to trust. That's the biggest thing that we can do. If we don't trust you, we're not going to go 100%. So if you're not allowing yourself to be vulnerable with the actor for the story that you want to give off, the actor is not going to be able to feel as tensionless. I don't know if that's a word or not, but without tension to be able to, and that comes from trusting the director, being like, I can bear everything I need to bear because I trust you. You know, we need to trust you. That is
that's right.
A relationship unlike any other, because it's a very personal relationship. Because you're right, we are purveyors of emotion. We are purveyors of the human perspective through this lens. So we need to trust in order to go wherever you need us to go. That's the only note that I was going to say.
Knowing Isaac for over 25 years, and just seeing how much he's loved, you know, his improv classes. He's talked to me about how he used to take improv classes, or he still does consistently since we've been teenagers, or just being around his family, that they're improv life, you know, that's what life is. You can't, there's no playbook to life or just anything in general. And I think that can be applied not just as actors, it can be applied to musicians, you know, visual artists. I mean, look at jazz. Jazz is improv.
Jazz is improv.
You know, and as humans, we don't want to listen to everything on beat. Like, it has to be improv to a certain point. You know, that's why vinyl's coming back, live instrumentation, because it's not robotic. You know, we live in a world of AI, but we still need that human aspect of improv and just being vulnerable. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy you guys brought that up, of just improv is super important, you know, like super, super important. But just to wrap it up, my question is, it's basically in the same mindset of, if you want it to be deep or you want it to just be face value, it doesn't matter. It's just however you're feeling in the moment or where you are in life, but it's just fill in the blank if you can. So it goes like this: my name is blank and I am blank, or my name is blank and I blank.
My name is Doug and I tell stories.
I love that. That was
some of them are bullshit and some of them are true. I'll let you figure them out. No.
There's even truth in bullshit. Okay, because when you step in that bullshit, damn, that thing stinks. So there's some truth in bullshit. Doug, this is your time, man. Tell anybody that whatever you want to plug right now. If you have any projects, go ahead and say whatever you want to say right now. The floor is yours.
Oh my gosh. I got a couple movies coming out. 3, in fact, in February on, I believe, the 25th on Lifetime Movie Network. We have She's Obsessed with Her Husband coming out, which I was happy to do this year, blessed to do this year. And then we have another one coming out called the Beach House Murders, which came out really good. That will soon be airing. I believe it'll be a Lifetime show again. And then right now we are in post-production on the movie that Sky and I were lucky enough to work on together called Deadly Advice. So those are coming around the pike. And then there's another movie that you can get anytime you want to on Vimeo on demand called The Hammer, which is a film that I made in Japan, and it's my love letter to my students. It's a thriller about a mental hospital in Japan, and it's called The Hammer, and the nail that sticks up must be hammered down.
Ooh.
So anyway, so that was fun. I got to wear a lot of hats and do about 6 jobs on that, so it was fun to do.
We can definitely put that in the description as well.
Yes, so. We'll put all of those in the bio or in the description for this episode for everybody. Doug, thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you so much for your time. This was so beautiful. I really appreciate it. You want and we have a special guest.
Thanks for feeding the ego. Hi, gorgeous. How are you?
How are you? I'm like listening in on Isaac's earphone.
Oh, okay. Hi. Great to see you. I'm about to go drive to the editors where I will see a lot more of you.
Oh, so, God. Yes. Well, you see me here and now you'll see a whole lot more.
Yeah. We're just loving your work. So thank you. And thank you for bringing him into my life.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah.
This
Thanks
one.
for. I mean, I wouldn't like introduce you two if I didn't feel like you both were.
I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like I was going to get
Amazing.
introduced anyways because you're +1.
That's
So
true.
you're forever +1. Okay, Mama,
Yeah.
he has to go. to
Okay,
the
go.
I know you want to
Hi,
stay
George.
here.
Yeah, I gotta go
Love
work on
you.
you.
Love you, Doug. Talk
Love
to
you
you
too.
soon.
Okay.
She wanted to talk.
Doug, it was a
I could
pleasure,
tell she
man.
wanted to sit there.
It was a
and talk.
pleasure. I have so many
It
more
was a
questions.
pleasure.
Hopefully, we can get you back on in the near
I would
future.
love to do a part 2. Maybe we could do a part 2 with Sky in it, and we can all have just a little
Okay.
bing bang, bing bang, bing bang.
Yeah.
Honored that you would care. So yes, I'll be there.
Thank you so
All right.
much, Doug.
Thank you,
All right,
Sky.
everybody.
This is the Cafe con Podcast.